Look, your parents will be home any minute. Are you sure you don't want me to clean up this mess?
No. Go. It'll be funny.
The 2003 Cat in the Hat movie is absolutely insane, but at the same time it is one of the greatest cinematic masterpieces that I've ever had the privilege, the honour of witnessing with my own two eyes. On the surface it appears to be a movie about the silly antics of the Cat in the Hat as well as the wholesomeness of family and friendship, but at its core it's about the crazy, sociopathic, unhinged individual that is the Cat in the Hat. Now at times the movie does low-key kind of feel like a horror movie. It can be terrifying. The movie, although misunderstood at first, has developed a cult-like audience who appreciate it for what it truly is, that being a masterpiece. So in today's video I want to honour this movie by detailing how it came to be as well as the impact that it's had on our whole society. The movie was based on the classic 1957 Dr. Seuss book titled The Cat in the Hat. The book detailed the antics of the Cat in the Hat after he rocked up to the house of these small children while their mother was not home. The cat thrashed about, causing an absolute riot in this house, and with help from his homies Thing 1 and Thing 2, destroyed the house of these small children while their mother was at work. Now this makes the Cat in the Hat sound like he's a crazy unhinged bastard, showing up to the house of these random children and destroying it. Like, it's absolutely insane behaviour. However, the book concludes with him using this contraption to clean up his mess right before the kid's mother arrives home. So he's not all bad, I suppose. However, I'd like to argue that he's still a bit questionable and is probably on some list somewhere. Keep an eye on this man. Now, the book was incredibly successful, selling more than 60 million copies worldwide, the book being one of Seuss's most well known, with the character of the Cat in the Hat becoming an iconic piece of pop culture that has been referenced in many different pieces of media. Now, the idea to adapt this character and this story into a movie actually stemmed from DreamWorks, who gained the rights to the book back in 1996 and began to develop it into a movie in the year 2000. With the success of The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, which was the first ever live action film to be based on a Dr. Seuss book, influencing DreamWorks and Universal's decision to go ahead with their plans to create the movie that we all know and worship today. Now this movie of course has a very iconic cast, including Mike Myers as the Cat in the Hat, Spencer Breslin as Conrad, Dakota Fanning as Sally, Kelly Preston as Joan, and of course Alec Baldwin as Lawrence, the boss baby himself. The movie was officially released in America on the 21st of November 2003. However, the UK was not blessed with this godsend until April 2nd, 2004. This must have been such a truly magical time for everyone who had the honour and the privilege of getting to see this masterpiece when it first dropped. Now, I think it's time that I stop yapping about the facts and the logic behind this movie and we just go into the cinematic marvel that is The Cat in the Hat. The movie begins with a narration that misleads us all into thinking that this is going to be a wholesome kids movie about a magical talking cat and his wee hat, while in reality we're about to witness one of the most insane pieces of media known to mankind. God help us all. The narrator introduces the town of Anvil and we're introduced to one of our main characters, Joan Walden, who is on the phone to the person she's hired to babysit her kids while she was working her job, that being with the Humber Flub real estate company. Joan is left shaking and crying due to the fact that her babysitter has informed her that she has to leave, resulting in Joan having to leave her job and return home to get her kids. So goddamn rude. This fool, who is the manager of this company, then emerges from the darkness and informs the other members of staff that it is in fact 9:02 and in turn time that they have their staff meeting. An absolutely horrendous way to start your day. I would rather stab myself in both my left and right eye than ever have to endure a staff meeting ever again. They are awful. Now the staff all run back to their desks, with the meeting beginning with the introduction of a new staff member. The new staff member shakes the hand of the boss, resulting in the boss losing his tiny mind and firing him, leaving everyone shook to their cores. He then slathers his hands in hand sanitizer because he's so repulsed at the idea of touching another human being, which is absolutely fair enough. People are disgusting. Now this moment helps us to understand how crazy and spooky Joan's boss truly is, but also the fact that he's a germaphobe who likes everything to be neat and tidy and clean, right? So just keep this in mind because it's important. The boss reminds the staff of their monthly meet and greet party, which is to be hosted by Joan, that will be happening later that night. Joan then informs him that she has to skedaddle home due to the departure of her rude ass babysitter, resulting in the boss losing his tiny mind and telling her that if her house is a mess when the party takes place, that she will in fact be fired. Joan promises the boss that everything will be fine and that the kids won't be annoying and heads home to get her children. We are then brought to the street that the Walden family live on by the narrator, who describes the street as essentially normal and wholesome where nothing crazy really happens, but little do these people know that the craziest bastard of all time is about to rock up on their street. street. We then meet Joan's kids, Sally and Conrad, who are the main characters of this movie. Sally is shown to be more wholesome and more of a goody two-shoes, while Conrad is shown to be the biggest annoyance of a child that the world has ever seen. Taking all sorts of different items from around the home, they create a soft protection while he throws himself down the stairs. Now, just as he arrives at the bottom of the stairs, his mother Joan arrives home and he flies out the door, banging himself into the car, as well as leaving a huge mess behind. This scene also helps establish that their family dog constantly runs away from the house, so keep that in mind. Joan is pissed, of course, due to the fact that he destroyed her house, and with the knowledge that the party is going to be taking place later that night. The boss baby then shows up with their dog that he'd found out in the street, and it's established that he and Joan are dating. The boss baby then tells Conrad to clean up his mess that he made, and while he's doing this, the boss baby tries to get Joan to send Conrad away to a military school. Conrad then confronts boss baby about his rude ass suggestion, and the two establish their rivalry, their beef if you will. However, boss baby switches up back to his nice guy act when Joan enters the room. That goddamn snake. Boss baby then leaves, and it is established that he'll be returning when the party begins later in the evening. As Joan is trying to prepare for this party that will be happening later on that evening, Mr. Humberflub, her boss, phones her and tells her that she has to return to the office immediately. Now, Joan understandably almost has a nervous breakdown due to the circumstances that she's in, and so she decides to call the kids' usual babysitter, Mrs. Quorn, who arrives shortly after to watch Conrad and Sally while Joan goes to work. Before she leaves, she warns the kids not to step into the living room, and Conrad then bickers with Joan, and Joan low-key drags him, which leaves Conrad shaking and crying. Joan then heads back to the office. Mrs. Quorn then watches the TV and falls asleep, and now she's basically asleep for like this entire movie, right? She is the diva of this movie, to be honest. And while she's doing this, Sally and Conrad look out the window, bored out of their tiny goddamn minds. This is so sad. All of a sudden, they hear a bump upstairs, and so they go to investigate. They go upstairs to find that the noise is coming from the closet, and when Conrad goes inside to investigate, he plays a little prank on Sally, pretending to disappear. And when Conrad comes out of the closet, Sally is of course pissed at him and tells him that she thought it was a monster. And when they turn around, they are met with the diva of all divas, the icon of our lifetime, Mike Myers as the Cat in the Hat. Our Lord and Saviour has arrived to save this movie. Now, the sight of this big ass cat with a big hat spooks the life out of Conrad and Sally, and so they scream and run away, which results in the cat chasing them around the house. One weird thing to point out about this movie that I low-key love is that the Cat in the Hat will often just break the fourth wall and will look directly into the camera, directly into our souls if you will, when delivering his lines. And I know people probably hate that aspect of the movie, but I low-key love it. It makes me feel like he's right here talking to me, and that gives me the strength that I need to move on from the pain and suffering that I've faced at the hands of the world. Thank you so much, Cat in the Hat. Now, Sally and Conrad run away and try to hide all over the house. However, everywhere they go, the cat locates them, resulting in them being spooked to their cores and running away. I'm not gonna lie, if I was one of these kids, hell, even me at my big age, I would be shivering, shaking and screaming if this cat showed up and just started chasing me throughout my house, and no matter where I hid, he would find me. Like, oh my god, he's so scary. It honestly does low-key feel like a horror movie sometimes, and this is like a great example as to why. Like, I was genuinely like scared watching this, like, oh my god, shiver me timbers. Conrad and Sally are sick of hiding, and so they confront the cat and ask him who he is, to which the cat spits some serious balls, informing them that he is in fact the Cat in the Hat. The Cat in the Hat begins to act like an absolute crazy lunatic, while Sally and Conrad just watch in horror. Now, another thing about this movie that is important to point out is the fact that it is intended for children, and this is one of the big critiques of the movie that I do see, but there are so many instances of inappropriate jokes which make me question if it was really made for kids, right? And it's not just like something that all the parents can watch it and it's just like a little innuendo. It's like full-on inappropriate jokes that are not easy to hide whatsoever. Like, they're very in your face and clear as day as to what they're trying to portray with them. Like, it's very inappropriate, right? An example being this scene here where Sally asks the Cat in the Hat where he came from, and he begins with the whole "when a mummy and a daddy cat love each other very much" cliche, or the scene where the Cat in the Hat begins to simp over Joan in front of her own kids, and his hat does that thing that it does. Like, come on bro, have some goddamn self-respect, Cat. What the hell is wrong with you? Now, Mike Myers also continuously does this weird ass laugh after he says any line in this movie, and I know that it probably annoys people when they're watching it, but I genuinely think it's so funny, and every time he would do it, I genuinely would laugh out loud. It's so stupid. I love this movie. The Cat in the Hat begins to go around the house making sassy comments and again pissing everyone off. He takes the babysitter and puts her in the closet, informing the kids that paying her to sit on babies is disgusting, as he would do it for nothing. The cat then whips out this contraption and uses it to measure how fun Sally and Conrad are, with Sally being labelled as a control freak and Conrad being labelled as a rule breaker, and the cat informs them that the cure is either nasty ass shots or a musical number, to which Sally asks how many shots. This comment from Sally sends the Cat in the Hat into what I can only describe as a crazy bastard meltdown, in which he smacks Sally with his tail into the couch. What an icon. The Cat in the Hat then begins to sing his wee song. Now, while Sally and Conrad and the rest of the people with absolutely zero taste whatsoever are disgusted by it, us the people who can understand what true art is and people with taste and class are boogieing it up. However, as we're getting into the good part of the tune, this fish interrupts the song, telling the kids that the cat shouldn't be in the house while their mother is at work. This goddamn who does he think he is? The Cat in the Hat has decided out the kindness of his own heart to help these children in their time of pain and suffering and boredom, and this dumb ass fish thinks he can just demand that he leaves? Get the hell out of here. Who does he think he is?
But I will stomp your head in if you start a fight with
The Cat in the Hat.
you thug scum.
The cat basically tells the fish to shut his goddamn mouth, which is, you know, fair enough, right? And then we get back into the iconic musical number. I have no words for this, but it is absolutely excellent, and I'm glad that I've had the privilege of witnessing it, right? Like, oh my god, what an iconic scene. After destroying many other things in the house and breaking many rules that Joan had set, the Cat in the Hat finishes his musical number and manages to win over the approval of Conrad and Sally, and they ask him to stay. The Cat in the Hat agrees to stay and makes the kids sign a long-ass contract with his lawyers present. It guarantees that the kids can have all the fun that they want and that nothing bad will happen, so the kids both decide to sign this contract. After signing the contract, the cat heads into the living room and the kids tell him that their mother had told them not to go in there. Like, that was like rule number one, to be honest, right? However, the cat could care less about what their dumbass mother told them to do and decides to go against the authority by messing with the couch as the kids just watch in horror. He then starts thrashing about on the couch, jumping up and down on it, and invites the kids to jump with him. Conrad decides to join straight away as Sally hesitates due to the advice of the fish. However, the Cat in the Hat, in what can only be described as a sociopathic episode, picks the fish up and chucks him away. Like, he just straight up assaults the fish. Let's just move on. Feel like, you know, we didn't see anything. Sally decides to join in and they all decide to bounce on the couch together. Now, this is another scene where I genuinely had to rewind it because I could not believe that Mike Miles said this. Like, I was so shook. And I understand that it's not even that insane of a joke. It's just because this is a kids movie. So basically the kids are talking about how jumping on the couch feels like a circus. You know, a very childlike thing to say. Into which the Cat in the Hat responds by talking about abused animals in the circus and the clowns that have hepatitis. Like, what the hell is going on? This movie is insane. This movie is absolutely insane, but I love it. Oh my god, I have no words. But I just thought that was another, like, weirdly inappropriate joke. As they're jumping on the couch, however, they're interrupted by the boss baby, who gives them into big trouble for going against their mother's wishes. This scene also helps to highlight the fact that his mask is slit him and he's not very nice to these children, but he is when Joan's about. So the boss baby goes into the kitchen and the kids notice that the Cat in the Hat is vanished, like his location is unknown. Where is this man? As they're questioning the whereabouts of the Cat in the Hat, boss baby emerges from the kitchen, having stolen Joan's beer and food, and in that moment the Cat in the Hat emerges and begins to bounce on the couch again. However, whenever the boss baby looks around, the cat clings to the ceiling and hides from him. So the Cat in the Hat then begins to scratch himself, and this results in his fur like kind of floating down from the ceiling where he's hiding. This results in the boss baby sneezing due to the fact that the boss baby has allergies to cats. The boss baby, in a rage, decides to leave due to the fact that he can't stop sneezing, and the cat then returns to the ground. Now, another point about this movie is that there's a lot of references to like adult topics, and as I said, it's not always just innuendos, it's just things that kids have no idea about whatsoever, like the clowns with hepatitis and the whole contract scene being like great examples of this. However, this next scene is also a really great example of this. So Sally tells him that she really wants to make cupcakes, and so they head to the kitchen to do that. The cat turns the kitchen into a TV cooking show. While cooking these cupcakes, he begins to make an absolute mess of the kitchen yet again with his contraption. This whole scene is basically a parody of those like weird cooking shows where the host is annoying as can be and like asks really stupid questions and repeats everything that the chef is saying, but kids don't really understand that, right? Like it's one of those things where it's not something that kids would even like kind of be aware of. It's like a very adult joke, and that's what I mean. It's not even like an innuendo, it's not like inappropriate, it's just weird that like the kids don't know that. But as an adult watching it, I love it. I think it's hilarious, and to be fair, the scene is quite funny as well. As a kid, I thought it was really funny, but I obviously didn't understand what it was parodying. Again, just another reference to something that kids have absolutely no idea about. Regardless, I love it, right? I don't want it to be misconstrued. I do love this scene. Now, after making the cupcakes, the oven explodes, because of course it does, making an absolute mess of the kitchen. This leaves Conrad and Sally absolutely shook to their calls, right? Because they've basically just went against the one rule that their mother had, which was like, please don't make a mess, because you know, she's about to lose her job, her livelihood. You guys are going to end up on the streets because of this goddamn cat. Sally then demands that the Cat in the Hat cleans the mess up, and so he begins to do so. The cat then goes into the closet and picks up this dress, using it to clean up the mess mess that he'd made, and as a result we get this iconic scene where the kids scream to him that the dress is in fact their mother's dress for the party that was going to happen later on that day, which the Cat in the Hat replies, "Honey, it was ruined when she bought it. My diva, my absolute icon." The fish then returns and loses his tiny mind about the mess. However, the cat demands that they all calm the hell down and says that he'll get it sorted, explaining that he knows exactly who will help. He then brings in this red box that contains the icons that are Thing 1 and Thing 2. Now this scene is so bizarre because it shows that this insane crazy bastard keeps these wee creatures in this box, and I feel like the authority should be contacted because are these children? Are they his children? Who are Things 1 and 2? What are they, right? Because like it's very weird. The rules of this universe are very strange, but anyway. Now this is another scene that genuinely made me like laugh. So Conrad basically tries to get into the crate that Things 1 and 2 were in, and the Cat in the Hat stops him, informing him that this is in fact a portal back to his world, and if he opened it then like crazy things would happen, right? And it would create like the mother lode of all messes. Now although this is what the Cat in the Hat's telling him, Conrad points out that it was actually made in the Philippines, to which the Cat in the Hat's like, no, it's like a different Philippines, right? But it genuinely made me laugh out loud. I don't know why. My brain is so rotted, right? Like I laugh at everything, but like this movie's goated. He tells Conrad that his only rule in the entire world is to not touch the crate. Don't open the crate, don't touch it, just leave it alone. That's his one rule. After informing Conrad of this rule, he locks the crate. The Cat in the Hat then gives Things 1 and 2 Joan's dress and informs them to clean it, and they do so and get the cake mix off of the dress. However, they get it all over the couch, causing the kids to again crash out into shake and cry, right? Things 1 and 2 then sort the mess out in the couch, but distribute the mess to the rest of the house, destroying the house even more than this crazy ass cat did. The Cat in the Hat is like high-key maybe kind of psychopathic, I can't lie. It's as if he's enjoying watching these kids genuinely lose their minds, and it's quite concerning, but he's also quite an icon, so it's like, you know, I'm conflicted. However, in the midst of this nonsense, the Cat in the Hat notices that the lock on the crate is missing and freaks the hell out. He realises that the lock is on the dog's collar and that Things 1 and 2 are in fact running away with the dog, so they have to basically try and get the dog off of Things 1 and 2 in order to get the lock back. Sally tries to reason with them, asking them to unhand the dog, and in that moment the Cat in the Hat informs Sally and Conrad that the Things 1 and 2 do the opposite of what they've been asked to do, which is quite rude of them, to be honest, and the fact that the Cat in the Hat just didn't mention that like to begin with, like whatsoever. Like he's an absolute menace to society, honestly. So the kids try to reason with Things 1 and 2 using this newfound knowledge and fail, resulting in the poor dog being thrown out of the goddamn window along with the lock, leaving the kids pissed off because the Cat in the Hat is just like driving them insane, right? This man is absolutely crazy. The Cat in the Hat then informs them that if they don't get the lock back for that crate, then bad things will begin to happen and the motherlode of all messes will happen. The fish then pipes up and tells them that they only have 4 hours left until the party, and so they begin to bicker and plan what they should do. They decide to use Mrs. Quam to hold down the crate while they go look for the dog and the lock. We then cut to the boss baby, and with the plot twist of the century, he is shown to be living a lie, as he's actually a big fat bastard with fake teeth who lives in filth and squalor. Boss baby then looks out the window and sees that the dog has begun running up the street again and decides to call Joan to inform her of this. He tells Joan that the kids have obviously been misbehaving and stuff because the dog's got out again, and that he'll go get it, and that he wants to discuss Conrad going to military school again, right? So he's basically trying to get rid of this child because he knows that the kid doesn't like him. It's actually low-key quite deep for a kid's movie, but anyway, let's just move on for that. Now while this is happening, Sally, Conrad and the Cat in the Hat spot the dog in this garden, and so the Cat in the Hat uses the children as a ladder to basically get over the fence to get the dog, and when he gets over the fence he spooks the dog away, and we get this really iconic scene where the Cat in the Hat basically picks up this garden hoe and calls it a dirty hoe and then says, "I'm sorry baby, I love you." Again, a joke that probably wasn't intended for children, but hilarious nonetheless. They then chase the dog down the street to a birthday party, and Sally realises that all her homies were at this party except her. This is so sad. The kids are let out of the house as they're trying to hide, so the Cat in the Hat doesn't have enough time to hide properly, so he disguises himself as a piñata while Sally and Conrad hide in the bushes. The kids begin to beat the Cat in the Hat with their bats, and he is left shaking and crying from the pain internally, and we the audience again are met with this iconic scene, one of my favourite scenes in the whole movie, where the Cat in the Hat is then whacked, and the pain is so horrendous, so unbearable, that he is sent to his happy place, that being him on a swing while the song Easy plays. It is genuinely one of the most iconic scenes in the entire movie. The pain of being whacked causes the Cat in the Hat to scream, resulting in the kids being left shook to their cores. Conrad thinks quickly and throws the candy from the discarded piñata onto the floor, causing the kids to be distracted from the fact that they have just assaulted this big cat. Again, I'm going to say this throughout this entire movie because every scene in this movie is so iconic, but we are then met with another iconic scene where the Cat in the Hat basically pops up behind the kid that whacked him and caused him so much pain, and appears to be, again, in what can only be described as a sociopathic rage, tries to whack the child right back the way that he whacked him. However, However, he's stopped by Conrad and Sally, and again, this is one of the most iconic scenes in the movie. Now, due to the commotion, the dog then runs away from the party, causing them to leave the party running after the dog. We are then brought back to the house, and finally Mrs. Kwan is awoken from her slumber by Joan calling to check on the kids. Now, Mrs. Kwan is deceived into believing that Thing 1 and Thing 2 are Sally and Conrad, and tells Joan that they're all good and that everything's all great, and Joan tells Mrs. Kwan that she'll be home as soon as she can. Mrs. Kwan then goes back to sleep, and Thing 1 and 2 mess about with her. However, as this is happening, the crate has opened, and the entities in the mess inside starts to creep out because she's no longer being used to weigh it down. We are then brought back to the Cat in the Hat, Sally and Conrad, as they try to get the dog. Sally is shaking and crying that she wasn't invited to this party, to which the Cat in the Hat tells her that she's a lone wolf and to stop whinging about it because nobody cares. However, as they are making their plan to get the dog, the Boss Baby shows up again and snatches the dog for himself because, you know, he wants to send Conrad to military school and this is his ticket to do so. The Cat in the Hat then randomly remembers that he has a car, which, you know, could have been useful this entire time, but whatever, and they decide to use it in order to chase after the Boss Baby to get the dog back and then turn the lock as well. They then make it into the town where Joan works and the Cat in the Hat crashes his crazy ass car. It's good timing though, as they arrive just as the Boss Baby arrives. Now the Cat in the Hat, Conrad and Sally cook up their plan to get the dog and the lock back and then plan to trick the Boss Baby into giving it to them. We then yet again get an iconic scene of the Cat in the Hat dressing up as a hippie to try and get the Boss Baby to sign his petition. Boss Baby asks the Cat in the Hat to hold the dog so that he can sign this petition so that this hippie bitch will leave him alone. The Cat in the Hat, Sally and Conrad then run away with the dog and the lock. However, Boss Baby decides to chase after them. They for some reason end up in this party, right, while they're trying to escape the Boss Baby because, you know, why the hell not? And we are met with this scene here where the Cat in the Hat dances with Paris Hilton. You know what? Hell yeah. Absolutely. I'm here for it. They then escape the party and the chase continues. They get the lock off the dog's collar and the cat realises that he's lost his real hat at the party, meaning that he no longer has his magical abilities that the hat gave him. We are then shown that the Boss Baby has snatched Joan from her office, informing her that the kids are running about mental with some big hairy guy in a big hat and demands to take her home in order to show her this. We are then brought to the movie's low point, where they believe that they are all doomed. However, Conrad decides that it's not over yet and gets the idea to call Things 1 and 2 to help them. So they show up in Boss Baby's car and they race home to beat their mother and Boss Baby so that they can sort the mess out. Conrad, in, you know, the weird opposite chat, tells Things 1 and 2 to slow down Boss Baby and Joan, and so they do so by pretending to be cops. However, in that moment, Boss Baby realises that they've stolen his car as basically they drive past him and Joan, and so he basically gets out the car and runs after them as well. However, Joan stays behind to, like, you know, talk to Things 1 and 2 who are pretending to be cops. The Cat in the Hat, Conrad and Sally arrive home. However, Boss Baby is there waiting for them and drags them inside. When they get inside, they are shocked to see that the house is in fact spotless. Now the Boss Baby begins to sneeze again and demands to know if there is a cat in this house because that's like the only thing he's allergic to, and to his horror, he turns around and is met with the icon that is the Cat in the Hat. The Boss Baby basically falls back due to him being so horrified by this big ass giant talking cat, and he basically like rips open what I can only describe as like a curtain, revealing that the house was in fact not spotless and the house has in fact been taken over by the mess within the crate. The Boss Baby then falls off this cliff, presumably to his death, that was created by this crate. Rest in piss to him. Now they then decide in order to clean up the mess they need to find and close the crate using the lock. They use Mrs. Kwan, who's still sleeping of course, as a boat and sail through their new home and try to find this goddamn crate. However, another scene that genuinely made me laugh out loud when I watched it was halfway through this boat ride they're going down like a how and there's a plug for Universal Studios, which is absolutely insane. This movie is like genuinely just like one big fever dream. They then locate the crate and try to close it so that the mess will go away, but they struggle to do so and Sally is basically sucked up into this tornado of mess. Conrad then uses the lock to shut the crate, saving his sister and returning the house to normal. For about 1 second, because after this the whole house collapses. Now while Sally and Conrad are absolutely disturbed over the destruction of their home at the hands of this crazy ass cat who broke into their home in the first place, the said cat is celebrating while also revealing that he didn't in fact lose his hat, meaning that he had magic this whole goddamn time and it meant that he could have just, you know, solved this entire problem. Sociopathic behaviour. He's absolutely insane. Oh my god, this cat is a menace to society. Now Sally and Conrad freak out in the cat, understandably, right, and the Cat in the Hat tells them that he planned this whole thing, which just makes him sound even more insane. Like, what the actual hell? Now Sally and Conrad then tell the Cat in the Hat to piss off out of their house due to him not knowing the limitations of fun, and this leaves the Cat in the Hat shaking and crying. My guy destroyed their entire house and is acting like the victim. Come on, Cat in the Hat, have some goddamn self-awareness. Conrad and Sally then have a wee heart to heart and agree to both take the blame for the mess, and they believe it to be their mother arriving home, but it is instead the Cat in the Hat who arrives to clean up his mess. He sings another wee song and tells them that because because Conrad opened the crate, it made the contract null and void, meaning that the cat wouldn't ensure that nothing bad would happen. However, it also said in the contract that if this did happen and they learned their lesson from this, then it would result in the contract being active again. The Cat in the Hat uses another one of his contraptions to clean up the house, and with the help of things 1 and 2, they repair and clean the entire house. I don't know if that makes up for the emotional distress that this crazy bastard has caused these little children, but you know, whatever, I guess, you know, a win's a win. The Cat in the Hat, before saying goodbye to Conrad and Sally, uses his contraption from earlier in the movie to measure the kids' level of fun and establishes that they're both cured and are now just right. They all say their goodbyes and it's all very emotional and very sad. I am shaking and crying. Joan arrives home and is pleased that the house is spotless. However, in that moment, Boss Baby enters the house and is covered in the purple goo from the crate. He tries to tell Joan that this is Sally and Conrad's fault, informing her about the mother of all messes from the crate and of course about the Cat in the Hat. However, Joan, of course, as anyone would, believes that he's just lost his tiny mind and is in fact a crazy bitch and demands that he leaves. She then dumps him and finally stands up for her son. The party then goes ahead and is received well by the guests. Joan goes over to Conrad and Sally and asks them what they got up to with their day, and we are met with the narrator telling us that they spent their day with an icon that is the Cat in the Hat. And it is then revealed, with another plot twist of the century, the narrator of this whole goddamn thing was in fact the Cat in the Hat. So not only is he psychotic, but he is also narcissistic. What an icon. The movie ends with the Cat in the Hat as well as Things 1 and 2 strutting down the street into the sunset, and with that, this masterpiece of a movie is concluded. Now overall, I absolutely adored this movie for what it was, right? Although sometimes I was laughing at it rather than with it, but there was many times where I genuinely was laughing at the jokes, especially Mike Myers' performance as the Cat in the Hat. It was genuinely so good. I personally think one of the worst things a movie can be is boring, and this movie certainly isn't boring. It might not be like the greatest movie of all time, and there's definitely faults with it, but if you're watching this movie, you're definitely going to get a giggle with it, and you know, that's more than what a lot of movies can say. Now, I think the biggest problem that I personally had with the movie is the fact that it clearly doesn't know who it wants to be targeted at. The concept is very obviously for kids, and that's obviously who they targeted the movie at. However, the humour, the tone, and the characterisation of many of the characters in the movie is done in a very adult way. It's so strange. A lot of the references and stuff are like very adult. It's just very strange. As I said, not even just innuendos, but just things that kids would have no idea about. Of course, we've got like the hepatitis joke, the cooking show scene, and of course the loyal scene as well with like the contract. Like, kids don't really understand what that means. Very clear it doesn't understand who it's trying to target. I think it would have worked better if this movie was like a parody of the Cat in the Hat for adults, because Mike Myers is obviously really funny. It's just that you could tell they were kind of teetering on the line of like they can't be too inappropriate, but they almost like wanted to be, so it's like they're in this really weird middle ground of like, who is this for? Anyway, I'll stop waffling now. But with that being said, I genuinely do love this movie so much. I think it is so funny, and it's almost one of those movies where there are a lot of bad things about it, but it kind of circles back to being amazing, and that's why it's got a cult like following, and that's why it's iconic, and that's why I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 5 rating. I absolutely adore this movie. The movie was financially successful, with it managing to gain a worldwide total of $133.9 million with a budget of $109 million. It was even declared to be the biggest movie during its opening weekend in America, beating out other iconic movies including Disney's Brother Bear and Elf, which is insane to think about due to the fact that Elf is one of the most popular Christmas movies to ever exist. All of this just proves to me that The Cat in the Hat is a legendary, culturally impactful piece of media, and in a fair society, this movie would receive all the praise and respect that it truly deserves. However, we don't live in a fair society, and this movie was in fact absolutely dragged by critics who were not fans of the humour and the writing presented within the movie. Many critics believe that the movie's portrayal of the Cat in the Hat was very strange, inappropriate, and even disrespectful to the original book, with the characterisation of the Cat in the Hat being pointed at as one of the main reasons for this, with critics suggesting that the Cat in the Hat's portrayal in the movie was very different to that in the books. On movie review websites, the movie has been bombarded with negative reviews by critics. On Rotten Tomato, the movie sits with a score of 10% from critics, while on IMDb the movie has a score of 4.1 out of 10. This just proves to me that critics have absolutely no idea what they're yapping about, because this movie is absolutely iconic and brings so many giggles, and the fact that they could not see that proves that they are just savages and idiots. This movie was so badly received that it was in fact the last ever live action Dr. Seuss movie to ever be made, at the request of Dr. Seuss's wife, with this resulting in the cancellation of the production for the second Cat in the Hat movie, which would have been based on the book The Cat in the Hat Comes Back. Despite this, however, movie adaptations of Dr. Seuss's books have been allowed after the failure of The Cat in the Hat. However, these movies have all been animated, with Horton Hears a Hoot and The Lorax being examples of this. The Cat in the Hat has actually been given a second chance to be on the big screen, with an animated adaptation of the book set to be released in 2026, starring Bill Hader as the Cat in the Hat. However, I think it's very clear that it will never live up to or be as breathtaking as the 2003 movie. The movie was nominated for many awards, with Mike Myers receiving a nomination for the 2004 Kids' Choice Awards for Best Actor, while the movie won Best Music at the 2004 BMI Film Awards. However, the movie was absolutely showered in nominations and wins for the Golden Raspberry Awards, or the Raspies, and the Stinker Bad Movie Awards, with pretty much the entire cast and crew receiving nominations and even winning some nasty awards. Now, these award shows specifically target movies that the industry deemed to be really bad, and so it's basically like the anti-Oscars. The fact that this movie was showered in nominations from these two award shows highlights how hated this movie truly was at the time, because people were simply uncultured. Some awards that the movie won in these award shows include the award for Worst Excuse of an Actual Movie award at the Golden Raspberries, as well as Worst Picture at the Stinkers Bad Movie Awards. However, the audience didn't have the same disdain for the movie in comparison to critics. This movie has actually went on to gain a cult-like audience over the years, with people accepting that it is an absolute godsend of a movie. Now, as mentioned throughout this video, not everyone agreed with my very correct opinion that this movie is in fact a masterpiece. However, allegedly one of the most infamous haters of this movie is in fact the Cat in the Hat himself, Mike Myers. Now, Myers' involvement with this movie began on quite a sour note due to the fact that he was borderline forced to be in the movie as a result of his lawsuit with Universal. This lawsuit was over the cancellation of a movie that was set to be made based on one of his most famous Saturday Night Live ideas, which was set to be directed by Bo Welch. Universal and Myers would settle the lawsuit outside of court, and one of the terms that they agreed upon was that Myers would have to star in the next film to be directed by Bo Welch, which ended up being, of course, The Cat in the Hat. So already Mike Myers' casting in this movie wasn't done in a way that was positive for everyone involved. Myers apparently hated filming this movie and acted in a way that pissed the entire cast off. Amy Hill, who played Mrs. Kwan in the movie, has opened up about how awful the filming of this movie truly was, calling it the worst experience that she's ever had working on a movie, with this being the result of the behaviour of Mike Myers. All of this is alleged, but Amy Hill suggested that Mike Myers refused to interact with the rest of the cast, even having a tent around his trailer to ensure that no one would annoy him while he wasn't filming, and also suggested that he was just very unpleasant and created a very nasty atmosphere on set. Apparently as well, Mike Myers had a guy on his team who was there to give him chocolates whenever he wanted. She also went on to say that the director of the movie, Bo Welch, was very inexperienced directing due to this being his first project. On a side note, by the way, imagine this movie being your directorial debut, right? It's just iconic behaviour, what a legacy to leave. She said that he would often ask Mike Myers for his opinion regarding scenes, resulting in Mike Myers kind of taking over with the directing duties, and this resulted in the cast having to redo scenes over and over again. So if this is true, Mike Myers was clearly not happy being on the set of this film and made it everyone's problem. And on the one hand, I can see why he wouldn't be happy to be there due to the circumstances of him being casted, but it's a shame for the rest of the cast if their experience working on this big movie was ruined because of this. Now, The Cat in the Hat has not only had a huge impact on my personal life and on wider society, but has also had a huge impact on internet culture, with the movie inspiring trends and memes across different social media platforms such as X and TikTok. One way that the movie has inspired internet culture is through moments from the movie becoming memes. An example of this, and probably my personal favourite meme to come from this movie, is this image here of the Cat in the Hat attempting to hit a child with a bat. This image of course stems from the birthday party scene, where the Cat in the Hat is trying to get his revenge on the kid that whacked him during his attempt to disguise himself as a piñata in order to hide from the party goers. Now, this image is often used as a meme template, as well as the image of the Cat in the Hat with the bat also being used as a reaction image. Another example is this image here of Mrs. Kwan when she first arrives at the Walden's house. Again, this image has become a meme and is often used with the caption labelling her as their grandma. Another example of a meme that stems from this movie is the Cat in the Hat on the Swing meme that became popular on TikTok. This meme actually began due to the fact that the song Easy became a trending sound on TikTok, which led cultural individuals to remind us all that this song was actually in fact used in this godsend of a movie. This led to this song and this scene becoming very popular, and in turn the trends almost like collided, and as a result this scene was used as a meme template on TikTok, accompanied, as I said, by the song. Another example of the way that this movie has impacted internet culture is through the Stop That's Mom's Dress scene becoming a trending audio on TikTok. This moment of course stems from the iconic scene where the Cat in the Hat uses Joan's dress in order to clean up the cupcake mess that he made, and is met with the backlash backlash of Sally and Conrad due to the fact that this dress was the one that Joan was going to wear to the party. Now, this audio is extremely popular on TikTok and is usually used by creators when showing off their outfits, usually done in the style of a transition. Another iconic way that the movie has impacted internet culture is through people dressing up as the Cat in the Hat and creating videos lip syncing to iconic scenes from the movie. This trend is usually more prevalent during Halloween. Now, this trend is almost kind of similar to the icons who dress up as the Lorax every year, and I'm very excited to see that happening again as well, because it's like my favourite time of year is Halloween, because I just get to see everybody dressing up as the Lorax and the Cat in the Hat. It's a great time. The costumes are always a 10 out of 10 as well. It's absolutely insane how detailed and how talented people are when they're putting these prosthetics on, like absolutely iconic behaviour. A final way in which this movie has impacted internet culture is through the fan edits for the movie. There's edits for absolutely everything in the world, from TV shows to movies, even objects as well get edits, and the Cat in the Hat is absolutely no exception to this. People create edits to show their love for the movie and its characters, while others create edits to show how insane this movie truly is, with the Cat in the Hat core videos being examples of this. Now, this movie is so iconic that it's been impacting internet culture for years and years, and this impact only seems to increase as the years go on, with more and more people waking up to the fact that this movie is peak cinema. The 2003 Cat in the Hat movie is an absolute cinematic masterpiece and will forever be one of my favourite movies. The movie, despite being misunderstood and dragged by critics, has managed to gain a cult-like following of people with class and taste who understand that it is indeed an iconic piece of media. Although the movie may be a bit strange and a bit insane at times, it cannot be denied that the giggles it brings makes it an absolute godsend of a movie.